Mary McCord, Glenn Kirshner, and Lisa Rubin are all back. Okay, Glenn, I think this is just so important for people to understand. Let's just start with the fact that this language is standard protocol. Explain more on that.
Every law enforcement agency, every law enforcement officer, when they are on an operation, whether it's executing an arrest warrant or searching a premises, they're entitled to use deadly force when to repel a deadly attack or to protect the safety and lives of others. So this was entirely routine, run of the mill, as the Attorney General and others said. But I'll tell you, Jen, the most infuriating part is when I read that 12-page filing from Jack Smith, and there were two things that really jumped out at me. One, they coordinated with Donald Trump's attorneys in advance of the execution of the search warrant. I have to tell you, I think that's a mistake, because that gives targets of an investigation an opportunity to hide evidence, to destroy evidence, to, I don't know, move boxes of classified documents from one place to another. Not only that, they executed this search warrant at a time they knew Donald Trump and his family would be out of Florida. They weren't even going to be in the state. So when Donald Trump posts that they were ready to shoot me and they endangered my family, he knows that is an extraordinarily dangerous lie to tell, because they weren't even in the state, and the FBI made sure they weren't going to be in the state. So when Steve Bannon says this was an assassination attempt, it's got to be the most incompetent assassination attempt ever, because they made sure the target wasn't even going to be on the premises. This is dangerous, violence-inducing rhetoric from Donald Trump.
And I want to spend a moment on that, because the threat, and Jack Smith references this in his filing, it's just the danger this caused. You heard Merrick Garland talk about this. And you've had all of these elected officials who know better. First of all, even if they're not lawyers, they know Trump wasn't even there at the time. That's an easy to understand fact. Right. And what the problem is that people can watch Tim Scott or watch Marjorie Taylor Greene and think that there was an assassination attempt on the former president when there clearly was not. Talk to me a little bit about the danger that this type of rhetoric and the echoing of it poses to law enforcement officials.
This is exactly why Jack Smith has sought an amendment of the conditions of Mr. Trump's release pending trial to include a condition that he not make these types of accusations and attacks. We know from, all of the cases that have been brought that attacks on judges result in threats to judges. There's a person being prosecuted for threatening Judge Tanya Chutkan here in D.C. in the January 6th related case. We know that right after the Mar-a-Lago search warrant was executed, there was an attack on the FBI field office in Cincinnati in retaliation for what the person who committed this had been, consuming as some sort of unfair raid on Mar-a-Lago. We know that prosecutors have been threatened, over emails, by voicemail, with people coming to homes. We know people have gotten doxxed. People have gotten, had false hoaxes called in about them and swatted, as they call it. So there is a track record here of people listening to false statements, not only by Donald Trump, but by people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, people like Tim Scott, and acting on them. And now this is probably the most inflammatory of all. Actually saying there was an attempted assassination, which is completely false and crazy. And what Jack Smith is rightfully concerned about is that is going to put a target on those law enforcement agents' backs.
It is so alarming. Lisa, Aileen Cannon has had moments where she's kind of exhibited some element of responsibility, other moments where she has not. What can she do here? What are the options should she want to take action?
Well, the first option for her is to do exactly what the motion asks, which is to modify Donald Trump's conditions of release. And Jen, I want to pause on that and differentiate that from your standard gag order, because the relief that the government is asking here would modify Trump's conditions of release such that if he were to violate them and make some sort of significant, imminent, and foreseeable threat to the law enforcement involved in this investigation, she could immediately revoke his release and impose conditions that would include putting him in jail or pretrial detention. So the very fact that the government is asking to modify the conditions of release and not just a standard gag order, that's a big deal. Then again, we have Judge Aileen Cannon, who has not been particularly expeditious in ruling on even the motions to dismiss in front of her. I think she sits on this for a while and then likely denies it, at which point Jack Smith can elevate this to the 11th Circuit. A denial of a request to modify conditions of release is immediately appealable in the federal system, and that's one of the reasons they likely have asked for it the way that they had.
Not particularly expeditious. That was such a good way of describing it, Lisa. Thank you all so much, Mary McCord, Glenn Kirshner, Lisa Rubin. I know you will all be working very hard explaining this to all of us all week, so I appreciate you joining me this afternoon.